It is the Sports Fix here on Flow FM, and on yesterday's program we had a look at some of the results and how the competition WBBL 07 has been going. Well, we're into the last weekend of the minor round. We've got semi-finals to come next week, and there's still some things that need to be resolved. Now, Laura Jolly from cricket.com.au is going to help walk us through all of the possible connotations for this weekend's matches. Laura, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Excellent. Good to have you on. How's your head going? You got a headache at the moment trying to work all this out?
Yeah, it's not as hard as it's been some other seasons, but the whole connotation around who finishes top and second, anything could still happen in that space.
That's true. So we've got a ladder which it's definitely taking shape. We've got two teams that are officially eliminated as of last night's matches. The Sydney Thunder were eliminated by the Renegades in a cracking game. The Renegades got home by 4 runs. An important win for them, keeps them on top of the table. And we'll talk about why that's important in a minute. But for the Thunder, their defence is officially over.
Yeah, it was always going to be a bit tough for them, missing the big names that they lost from last season. But they kept it alive right until last night, and they were one boundary away from beating the Renegades in the end. Yeah,
cracking game of cricket. The Renegades just keep doing what they need to do to win games. So let's have a look at the ladder, and then we'll talk about what the connotations may be for the weekend's matches. So the Renegades are on top at the moment. The Perth Scorchers in second spot, just a game behind on 16 points. The Brisbane Heat, they've all played 12 games at the moment. The Brisbane Heat are on 15 points, so just one game behind. Net run rate won't count for them when it comes to the Perth Scorchers or the Renegades. But it will when it comes to the Adelaide Strikers, who are on 13 points. So that's the top 4 at the moment. My understanding is the top 3 is already safe. Is that right?
Yep, they've all locked their spots in. It's just a matter of where they finish in that top 4 now.
That's right. So, and the Heat can still finish on top of the table if results go their way. They'll need some help. The Perth Scorchers and the Renegades are the ones that are really locked in that battle for top spot. The Adelaide Strikers, though, are still at risk, albeit it's a minuscule risk. They lost their game yesterday, which would have sewn up a final spot, right?
Yep, that's right. And so they've just got to win one more of their last games and they'll get through. So they still have a tricky couple of matches left, but you'd back them in to win at least one.
Yeah. So the two teams that are chasing the Strikers down for the final semi-final berth are the Melbourne Stars and the Sydney Sixers. Now, interestingly, the Strikers will play the Sixers as one of those games, but with the net run rate differential here for the Sixers and the Strikers, not only are the Sixers going to have to win, but they're going to have to win big. Yeah,
they will, and it's the same with the Stars, who also have quite a big net run rate deficit. So the Strikers are looking pretty safe. The one difference with them and the Stars is that the Stars have had 2 washouts, so they're not on the same points. So net run rate wouldn't be a factor. So if the Stars happen to beat them and shock the Scorchers, they could still sneak in, but I think the Strikers are really well positioned.
Yeah, they are. Let's have a look at tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday's matches. And the other thing we're going to have to factor into the equation here when we talk about this is where these matches are scheduled to be played, because we could see up to 40 mil of rain fall in the southern parts of the country over the weekend, and that could play a little bit of havoc with potential results and what's needed as well, right?
Yeah, definitely could. I haven't had too close a look at the forecast yet, so I'm going to have to do that. It probably is a good thing then for the Stars, the Sixers and Strikers that they're all in the one location. So the weather shouldn't be too decisive between them, depending on when it falls. And yeah, I think Mackay's meant to be super hot, so it'll be very different up there.
Yeah, they'll be right in Mackay, I think. But who are playing at Mackay? Who's up there at the moment? Who's going to be playing there over the weekend?
So we've got the Hurricanes, the Renegades, the Heat, of course, and the Hurricanes.
Yeah, okay. So the Canes, their season is over. They'll play the Renegades tomorrow, who just have to keep winning to keep top spot. If they win their last 2 games, they'll finish top. And with the way the semi-final setup is this year, if you finish top, you go straight into the final. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So as it stands, the the Gades are very well positioned. If they win their last couple of games, they'll hang on to top spot, but they do have a tricky game against the Heat to round things out. So that could be decisive, because if the Scorchers win both remaining matches, they might just snag that direct path to the final, and for them it would be a home final.
Right.
So they've got that added incentive, whereas the Renegades won't be able to host, so they'd have to pick their own nominated ground if they did finish top.
Sure. So the teams that aren't in Mackay, where are they playing this weekend?
So the rest of the competition will be at Adelaide Oval. Hopefully not washed out. But yeah, Saturday looks grim. So
Saturday does look grim, and importantly, the Adelaide Strikers are scheduled to play the Sydney Sixers at 12:40 p.m. in Adelaide, and I think the chances of that game actually getting through are next to minuscule. So that would pretty much settle the semi-final lineup in terms of makeup, not necessarily what position they're going to finish.
yeah, it would. And you've got the Stars and the Scorchers first thing that morning too. So if that's also washed out, it probably costs the Scorchers a chance to host the main final, and it definitely rules the Stars out of advancing.
Yeah, okay. So we haven't heard any confirmation from the Scorchers yet as to where they would host their potential home final, have we?
So they would host somewhere in Perth.
Yep.
I'm not sure which of the two grounds they would be playing at. Same with the Strikers in Adelaide, and Brisbane will be playing somewhere in Queensland. It's only the Renegades who won't be able to host their final in Melbourne, and that's because of the border restrictions that would prevent the Scorchers and the Heat from returning home after a game.
Sure. Okay. So the Scorchers will be able to play over there in Perth. That's confirmed?
Yeah, as it stands, because the teams have only been in South Australia and Queensland the last 2 weeks, and they're both open to WA, or WA is open to them.
Yep.
So they've got no issues going back. Of course, we know that could change in the blink of an eye at the moment. But as it stands, there is no issue with any of the teams getting back to Perth to finish off the competition there.
Well, forgetting the rain for a moment, the Strikers have a fascinating couple of games because they're due to play the Sixers and the Stars, the two teams that are chasing them down for that final spot. So win one of them and they're in. If they lose both of them, they're at risk to one of them. Yeah,
so they've been on such a good roll yet so far, so it seems hard to see them dropping both. They should probably win both. But there was a bit of a hiccup yesterday against the Scorchers, and it'll be, a good test to see how they'll go, because you want momentum heading into finals.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the Heats game against the Renegades. Before that, they'll play the Thunder. So if Melbourne do slip up to the Canes, who have got nothing to lose, it's pretty much grand final weekend for them, then that game adds in intensity on the Saturday night. But sitting back watching all of this will be the Perth Scorchers, who have the Melbourne Stars and the Sydney Sixers on the way home. If they can win both of those and the Gades do slip up somewhere, then they will host the final.
Yeah, so they've got a good opportunity. They're going to obviously be hoping that they don't get a washout, or they can at least win one of those games in Adelaide across the weekend. I think the Renegades Heat should be a really close game, and it should be a drastically different one to the one they played at Karen Rolton Oval a few weeks ago when there were 400 runs scored across the match. We know Mackay's hasn't been as batter-friendly, particularly under lights, so it could be a much different contest this time round.
Yeah. All right, just to finish off, the semi-final lineups, whoever is playing in whatever order. So I believe the semi-finals will start on Wednesday next week. Then we've got Wednesday, Thursday, and the final itself is scheduled for next Saturday. So if you finish top, you've got almost a week off before the final. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And if you finish third or fourth, you're going to have to win 3 games across 5 days to take out the title. So that's a pretty big ask.
That's a massive ask. Yeah, definitely. So 3 versus 4 on the Wednesday. The winner of that plays 2 on the Thursday, and the winner of that game goes on to the final to play the minor premiers in the final of WBBL 07. Have you got a feeling of who might finish in that top 4 and in what order?
I think, given what you've just told me about the forecast, it's definitely the Renegades' top spot to lose at this point. And they did really well to hold off the Thunder last night to keep that advantage. And I think it's probably a toss-up between Scorchers and Heat for second. The weather could well decide that position, and I think Strikers for sure will finish fourth.
Top four maybe already set, just in what order it settles in, but Stars and Sixers fans aren't without a chance at the moment. It's going to be a fascinating final weekend of WBBL action. And catch Laura's work on cricket.com.au. We'll be following it all weekend. Laura Jolly, thanks for joining us again here on The Sports Fix.
Thanks for having me again.